Well, it looks like Warhammer Legends has finally dropped, meaning that some units are no longer quite as tournament friendly as they were before. Let's have a chat about it. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy and tactics minded 40k channel, where today we're going to have a look at which units moved to Warhammer Legends, and I'll largely be focusing on the Imperial side of things, as that's the side that I'm most familiar with. Now, I was curious with what was going to happen with Warhammer Legends. If you're not familiar, then it's a system that Games Workshop told us was coming a little while back. Basically, most of their models have now been moved over from the indexes that came out at the start of 8th edition to codexes where the armies were revamped and given more flavourful rules and stratagems. But in these upgraded codexes, they didn't include anything that they don't make anymore, or at least for the most part. Now, this is quite annoying for people who have either bought models from them or converted models to represent things that they used to sell and were valid options in the last edition, but are no longer available for sale. So it puts Games Workshop in a bit of a dilemma. Either they keep on making rules for the old models that have gone out of production, and potentially have them be quite important models for competitive play in 40k, despite the fact that they don't sell them anymore, and as the years go by they'll amass ever more of these models most likely, forcing them to do more and more admin to keep the game functioning and make sure that none of these units are broken or unusable. It might also be a bit discouraging to new players if there are certain units that are very good and you might really want to use in your army, but they can't buy them anywhere, so they have to go out and make their own, which depending on the model in question might be quite easy, or it might be very hard indeed. So Games Workshop is in the position where they don't want to anger their old customers too much and just not support the old models that they no longer make, but they want to trim back on rules bloat in the core game where they can, because Lord knows there's far too much of that already. Also, as a company that sells models, they'd rather run a game that includes models that they make rather than models they don't make, even if they used to make them. So the way that they've addressed this is with a system called Warhammer Legends. Basically all of the models they used to make a miniature for, but no longer do, will get put onto that website, their rules freely available, and they'll have a points cost, so they will always be able to be used and played with provided you and your opponent are happy with it. However, they say they won't be recommending these for matched play, particularly not in events such as tournaments and things, unless someone actually makes an event where they say yes, these are specifically allowed, and they say you're certainly welcome to do that if you like. To my mind, this is a pretty reasonable middle ground, where all of the models remain usable, but for organised play, it removes one set of books that we don't need to carry with us. Though that's another topic in itself, Games Workshop likes to make us carry as many books as possible, it seems. I think this legend system will most help newer players, tournament organisers, game balance, and people who didn't own any of these models before. And obviously it will be the biggest negative to people who already own some of these models, as they'll be discouraged from certain forms of matched play. For me personally, I've taken some casualties among my armies. My guard have had 30 Rough Riders sent to Legends, my orcs have had a war boss on bike and a big mech with a custom force field sent over there, and my Space Marines have got their Tech Marine on bike relegated to Legends as well. Having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some of these popular units return. I'd be amazed if Games Workshop doesn't at some point release an Orc War Boss in Mega Armour. It seems like it might be one of the most obvious picks to make next, maybe as a dual kit with Ghazghkull. Let's see if that materialises at all at the same time as the Saga of the Beast Psychic Awakening book is there. So I honestly think that some of these might come back at some point, particularly the more popular units. With all that being said, let's see what's moved to Warhammer Legends. So the Legends website is split into Warhammer Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k. I'll include a link to it in the description below. The 40k side of things has 18 PDFs, so yay, let's go through them all. The Space Marines document has the Landvader Excelsior and Rhino Primaris, which are the tanks that you can get at Warhammer World. I'm not sure if you still can or not. It would be a bit weird to relegate them to Legends if they're still selling them. If someone knows the answer to whether they're still selling them, please let me know down in the comments. We have the Imperial Space Marine with his Disintegration Combi Gun. He was released to celebrate the 25th anniversary of 40k. We've got a slew of characters on bikes. We've got your Chaplain, Librarian, Apothecary, Tech Marine, Company Ancient, Company Champion, and Company Veteran, all on bikes. I know the Chaplain certainly used to have a model. I'm not sure if any of the others did, barring some fancy conversions and the Raven Wing ones, which are obviously still in the main game. It is a shame to lose them to my mind, and with most things going Primaris these days, I don't think they'll ever be coming back. The generic Honor Guard datasheet is here too. The Ultramarines version is still available in their new codex, but the non-chapter aligned version is here. The Terminus Ultra, the Ultramarines Land Raider with a load of las cannons, has been moved here. I think this came out alongside the original Apocalypse by slapping some Predator sponsons on a Land Raider and calling it a new kit. We've got the old versions of all of the characters that have become Primaris as well. Both versions of Marnius Calgar, Tagirius, Shrike, Karaso Khan, and Karaso Khan on his bike. And then we have some war gear options as well. The various Dreadnought weapons that it can be armed with, including the twin autocannon Dreadnought, which used to be a staple back in 5th and 6th edition. Weirdly, we've got a Storm Shield for the Librarian and Terminator armour, the Conversion Beamer for a Tech Marine, which I'm not sure if it was ever made, but it was certainly a cool and fun option, and the other various war gear options for the Venerable Dreadnought, such as twin autocannons, twin heavy bolters, and twin heavy flamers. It has a bunch of points values for all of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. If you're interested, just check them out on the Legends website. Let's look at the other flavours of Space Marines now. The Blood Angels have their old version of Mephiston here, the non-Primaris version, the Sanguinary Priest on bike, and a lot of jump pack versions of units, including jump pack veterans, and jump packs for the Champion, Ancient and Tech Marine, interestingly enough. They also have a whole load of random combi weapon things in their war gear section, which I imagine just means that they could take them at some point. Just like the main Codex Space Marines, the Rhino Primaris, Land Raider Excelsior, Imperial Space Marine, and various characters on bikes are listed too. Now for Dark Angels, we have the Interrogator Chaplain on bike, all the generic Space Marine units we just mentioned, and some war gear options for Belial in close combat. Apparently at some point he could take Lightning Claws and a Thunderhammer. The Space Wolves have their own version of the bike characters here, Rune Priest, Wolf Priest, Wolfguard Battle Leader, Iron Priests both on bike and on Thunderwolf. I remember the Thunderwolf Iron Priest being quite a staple in 7th edition, and I'm glad that those dark days are behind us. Sadly, the Lone Wolves are also here with us. They've been replaced by that stratagem to upgun the last surviving member of a squad. To be honest, I don't really see why the Lone Wolves have come here. You can make Lone Wolves out of any of your Space Wolf kits, so technically they still do sell the models. But anyway, the Standard and Terminator armoured Lone Wolf are both here. We've also got Wolf Guard and the Wolf Lord on bikes. I guess the bike captain for Codex Space Marines has only stuck around because of that quirky White Scars kit that they have, that they still sell at the moment, and that's not something that can be run for Space Wolves. So sadly, bike captain is gone for Space Wolves. There's not too much on the wargear side of things, just a couple of minor upgrades on some of the characters. Deathwatch didn't really lose anything, just some combi weapons on some of their characters. Not exactly worth printing a PDF for in my mind. Grey Knights only lost the extra Dreadnought weapons and their Tech Marines Conversion Beamer. Legion of the Damned are in here in their entirety as far as I can tell, which is a bit of a surprise as well. As far as I can tell, they're still selling Legion of the Damned, so I'm not sure why they've gone into Legends. It's true that they haven't been updated since the Index. I was expecting some sort of White Dwarf rules at some stage, so really don't know why this is the case. Seems a bit of a shame though, as it wouldn't really have been all that much effort to roll them in with the main Space Marine Codex when it came out. For the Sisters of Battle, we have Uriah Jacobus. Again, I thought he was still being sold, I don't know, but I can only presume that he's been retired, as they've not redone him for the new Sisters of Battle range. He is a missionary character. There's also a character called Archconfessor Kyrinov, who, I'll be honest, I've absolutely never heard of. He does appear to be another Ministorum Priest type character. Not sure if he was in the Index or not, but he's certainly here now. Aside from that, they have quite a bit of war gear in here, which as far as I can tell is just fancy melee and ranged options for squad sergeants and the canoness. Oh, and the preacher as well. Other than just melee power weapon type options, I can't really see anything else here. For the Astra Militarum, we have My Beautiful Rough Riders. Hopefully you return one day. I genuinely think that Games Workshop would sell a lot of horses if they did bring them back. I mean, look at how many people are willing to buy the Death Riders of Krieg, even though their real-world money cost is in the hilarity ranges. Aside from this, they lost power weapon options that were present in the Index but not the Codex, such as power axes and power maws, and the special weapon squads also have their demo charges in here which weren't in the Codex but were in the Index. The Inquisition is in here, and it's literally just losing the option of taking a null rod. I have no idea why they just didn't rope this into the main Inquisition Codex that they just released. For the sake of one war gear option, to save a whole PDF, it might have been better. Let's do the Xenos next, and we'll start with the Orcs because I know them and I know that they have a lot of units in here. Firstly, we have the War Boss in Mega Armour, your standard non-Mega Armoured Big Mech, your big mech on Warbike, your Warboss on Warbike, hilariously enough the red Gobbo, which they've just literally made a miniature for. I guess it just shows that they're not recommending him for match play, though he is a fun little model. The Pain Boy on Warbike, the Old Buggies, the War Buggies and War Tracks, and Scorchers, and the big guns who have been replaced with the mech guns. Unless I'm being blind, I can't actually see an option for the mech in here to take a custom force field as well. Not sure why, I was pretty sure that one had gone away. If they could let us have it back at the same time as that Saga of the Beast Psychic Awakening comes out, I'd be very grateful. Also in here are some war gear options for Burner Boys, the Big Bomb for Deathcopters, the Kill Saw for Deathcopters, and the other ranged weapons for Deathcopters including custom Mega Blaster. The Nids only have the Spike Rifle option for Termagants, and a Strangle Web weapon option, both of which I believe were from ancient kits long ago. For the Dark Eldar, we have the Kabbalite Trueborn and Hecatrix Bloodbrides, the elite versions of the standard Witches and Kabbalite Warriors. I guess they never really had their own specific kits, but to my mind this doesn't really matter too much. You could just easily have used your regular troops as these. There's some options for the Archon in here, the Phantasm Grenade Launcher and the Blaster, but I'm pretty sure that the Archons can take a blaster in the new codex, so not entirely sure why that's here. There's also a few war gear options for the Beastmaster that didn't make it into the codex. For their Craftworld dwelling counterparts, we have the Autarch with the Warp Jump Generator, a model I owned myself in the distant past made of metal, and the Bone Singer is in here too. I think that they came out in combination with Dawn of War, but I might be wrong. There's a bunch of war gear options in here, including some of the interesting Autarch options that were a lot less restricted in the past. For all three of the Autarch datasheets, basically all of the options that were in the index but not the codex. There's some Power Swords for Storm Guardians, Chain Sabers for the Striking Scorpion Exarch, Sun Rifle for the Swooping Hawks, and Spinneret Rifle for the Warp Spiders. I think that most of these didn't have official models, or perhaps didn't make the transition to Finecast. There are no Necrons in here, there's no Genestealer Cults, there's no Harlequins. That's it for Xenos. So finally we come to Chaos then. Let's start with the big one, Chaos Space Marines first. The Chaos Space Marines have their unique Lord movement options based by their gods, and the Lord on the bike in here. There's the Palanquin of Nurgle, Steed of Slanesh, Disc of Zench, and Juggernaut of Khorne. The Sorcerer also has the similar options, and he's in here with his bike, the Zench, Nurgle, and Slanesh options, but funnily enough, he doesn't have a Khorne option. I'm not sure the Juggernauts would be too happy carrying a Sorcerer around. The Death Guard and Thousand Sons also have a short PDF. The Death Guard have a Lord on a Palanquin, and they have a Sorcerer with a jump pack, and the Thousand Sons have a Sorcerer on a Disc of Zench, and a jump pack Sorcerer as well. There's also some Terminator Sorcerer combi weapon options in here for both of them as well. And last but not least, we have the Chaos Demons, who literally just have their Herald on a Steed of Slanesh. So that's a whole ton of content. It is good to see them updated and freely available on the internet, but I know certainly some people won't be happy about them being not recommended for tournaments or competitive events. I'm afraid I've not been able to go over whether or not any points changes have been made. As for the vast majority of these units, I just don't know the points cost off by heart, so feel free to peruse and let me know if there's anything interesting down below in the comments. I think that even if this is going to annoy some people, Warhammer Legends has at least drawn together all of the extra little bits of the game that hadn't so far found their home in a Codex or White Dwarf update, since the mad rush of the indexes all coming out very early in the 8th, and at least it's a rare move that Games Workshop is making to actually reduce the amount of clutter, at least in terms of amount of books that you have to carry around. Though, as we discussed at the start, it does have positives and negatives, and I'm sure you all have differing opinions on how good this move was and whether it could have been done better. Despite being on the receiving end of some of these things, being locked out of competitive play, I'm not really too annoyed about it, as most of the competitive events I've been attending haven't been recommending index options anyway, so things haven't really changed too much for me. And if I do want a more casual game, there's absolutely no reason that I can't ask my opponent beforehand if I can bring some legend stuff along, and I don't think that most people would mind at all, seeing as there's unlikely to be anything in here that's massively overpowered. It just adds some interesting different options that can make your games different. So, like I said, let me know your thoughts down below. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more videos like this, or to support me on Patreon if you've been finding my content useful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.